Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast, coming to you live after a very close win by the Los Angeles Chargers over the Minnesota Vikings. These two teams don't know how to play normal games on their own, so it's only fitting that when they get together, the game ends in the weirdest way possible. So we'll dive into all of it today. Tyler is here as well. Tyler, what's up, man? How you doing today?
I'm much happier than the last two times we did these recaps. I'll tell you what, man. Wins do feel better than losses. It's a wasn't the easiest game to get through. It never is, but I was relieved to see the Chargers won in the end.
Yeah, 1-2 is certainly better than 0-3. We'll be
is.
happy with the win. So many things to get into. Somehow today, like the JC Jackson thing is like 15th on the list of things to get into.
Yeah.
It's just an incredible like game to watch, and I don't know if I would say it's like in a good way. Just like a lot of sloppy moments, fourth down discourse. We get Justin Herbert over 400 yards passing today. So many areas that we could touch on to start the game this afternoon. But I think first and foremost, we have to talk about Brandon Staley's decision to go for it on 4th and 1 on their own 27 yard line, 28 yard line, with less than 2 minutes remaining in the game. So Tyler, what are your thoughts here as we kind of piece through this game and zoom in on the 4th down decision first and foremost?
I think when the Chargers were a yard away or whatever, I said, I think, I was with my parents watching the game, and I said, I think they're going to go for it. And it's kind of something that we had talked about in this game or heading into this game. Like, okay, if the defense isn't going to be any kind of X factor, if you as a head coach, Brandon Staley, like your defense is not getting it together, so what are you going to do? At least be an X factor and let the offense go for it on 4th down. And in this particular instance, I get it. Like I did get why they would go for it, and it turns out I don't have the numbers in front of me exactly, but it was a go in that situation, and that's going to get lost in the shuffle, and it certainly would even get more lost if the Chargers lost the game, but they won. The decision itself, I get. The decision is something that I don't think I would have had the guts to go for, but I understand it. I'll be honest, there's no thought in my mind that the Vikings would have just gone down the field and scored had they punted it. And we would have a whole different conversation about how Brandon Staley's defense is terrible and he should have gone for it. So it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. The issue there is obviously with the Joshua Kelly run and that being the choice there.
Yeah.
Now, the play probably should have worked, but Donald Parham could not get in front of the guy and block him. Otherwise, it was a first down, but Donald Parham could not execute there. So unfortunately, it didn't work. The issue is looking at everything prior to that. You have 10 rushes for 11 yards for Joshua Kelly or whatever it was. Yeah. Heading into that moment, if you ask me, hey, on 4th and 1, the Chargers needing it, the Chargers decided to run with Joshua Kelly against the Vikings defense, I'd say, okay, I actually think that kind of makes sense because going into this game, the Vikings defense was so bad against the run. And the Chargers, as we talked about, were second in success rate. They were first in EPA per rush. So it made so much sense in that vacuum. But until that up through the actual game, again, 10 rushes for 11 yards, it wasn't working. Now, granted, that's still a 1.1 yard average, which means you still should have gotten it even if you were terrible. But they didn't. And thankfully, the Chargers won the game. So we're not talking about this too much. So I get it. I understand it. The numbers did say go for it. I don't remember by how much. It wasn't like a super obvious one. It just didn't really work out. But I can at least respect it. And with your season on the line and your defense playing as bad as it was, and with Derwin James out of the game at that point, and obviously Joey not being 100%, I get why you go, listen, we're just going to put it in the offense's hands. I just know that a lot of fans would have preferred it with Justin Herbert's.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair way to put that. The numbers, according to Ben Baldwin, it was an easy go for it call, according to the analytics side of things, which I think is an indication of Brandon Staley making sound decisions. So I don't have an issue with this from Brandon Staley. I think this is the right decision for him to get back to what he was in 2021, which was an aggressive, forward-thinking, analytically driven head coach from a decision-making standpoint, and that won them a lot of games that year. You can make an argument for the negative side of things, but Ben Baldwin had this as a decision that would have increased the Chargers' win probability by a significant amount. It was an 80% chance of winning if they had punted it. It was an 89.5% chance of winning if they went for it. So the winning probability was an easy go from an analytical decision. So I think when you zoom in and you talk about this kind of decision, there's going to be a lot of narratives around the fourth down decision this week. The Fox guys, it cut to them right afterwards, and the Fox guys were not happy with Brandon Staley's decision.
Yeah.
And you can cite things like the Vikings didn't have any timeouts. You have a good punter. Your defense has been playing like okay, but like you said, to me, I am a fan of the decision to trust the offense because the offense is the reason that you've been in games the last 3 weeks. I have an issue with the play call that Kellen Moore decided to run with. It's a play that theoretically should work. It's a quick hitting run. The issue is that the run game was basically non-existent today. Before that, Joshua Kelly is averaging 1 yard per carry. There were a couple carries where I felt like he was just like half second away from breaking loose a couple times. The offensive line was not a super clean operation today. So to me, like I'm trusting Justin Herbert in that moment, and I'm trusting Keenan Allen, who had 18 catches for 205 yards in that game, or actually I think it might have ended up being more than that. So you have like this amazing game from Justin Herbert, an all-time performance from Keenan Allen, like that. Those are the guys that I would be trusting in that moment. Not to say that Joshua Kelly isn't a good player or anything like that, but this just wasn't the moment for that play. You want to do a quarterback sneak, you want to do the tush push or whatever we want to call it with Will Clapp whenever he comes in the game. I'm cool with that. But I think this is sound decision making by Brandon Staley. The play call by Kellen Moore, I have an issue with.
Yeah, I wonder how much what happened during this game influenced maybe what could have happened there. Now, this doesn't excuse the call, but at this point, Mike Williams was out of the game. And that's someone who they went to on fourth down, I believe, against the Dolphins when they did go for it on a comeback route. So, like, that part of your game is out. And that's someone you go to in the situations. I'm assuming at that point then, although Vikings could not stop him, that in that situation, you're doing everything to make sure it's not Keenan Allen. So if Keenan Allen is out there, you're trying your best to make sure it's not him. So, okay, if Keenan Allen's probably going to be taken out, you don't have Mike Williams. Josh Palmer has been lucky in some instances and unlucky in some. Do you go to him there, or do you lean on Joshua Kelly for 1 yard? But then it's like, okay, but could we do more than that? Could we go to Gerald Everett? Could we go to Donald Parham or something else? So I get not like, I don't think it was just as obvious as, oh, let's give it to Herbert and give it to Keenan Allen. I don't think it would have been that easy, although it was throughout the game. But again, still, I just wish there were more. And I think there is more for the Chargers. I think they will learn from this. I was still surprised by the outcome of the play too. I really thought they could have gotten the 1 yard there, even if I didn't like the call.
Yeah, and I would have liked to see them try and get the Vikings off sides too in that instance, like Mark Sanchez was calling for in that instance. We've seen that Herbert have some good luck with the cadence in certain moments. So this is a play that the Chargers offense will learn from. Kellen Moore, I thought overall had a really smart game plan today. And I think in a different circumstance, the Chargers would convert for that kind of situation. So I'm hopeful that this results in more Brandon Staley aggressive decisions, because I think that is a winning edge for this team that has been missing for the past couple of seasons. So any other thoughts here on the fourth down decision, Tyler?
No, I think we covered it. I think we covered all aspects of it. I'm ready to talk about anything else.
All right. So I wanted to talk about the fourth down decision first.
Yeah.
Where do you want to, what kind of conversation do you want to have here next?
The connection between Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen, and how I haven't seen anything decimate the Vikings that bad since the plague. That was a fantastic connection between the two of them, to the point where you have Keenan Allen setting personal records. He's setting franchise records. He's now the leading receiver in terms of wide receiver in Chargers history in receiving yards. A phenomenal day from him. Even though he had the one offensive pass interference, incredible day from him. Receiving yards, a 49-yard passing touchdown.
Yeah.
I don't love the screens as they're happening, but I do love that there is I got you in each of the last 2 weeks when it comes down to those plays. That's been a lot of fun. Justin Herbert had a phenomenal game, and even the one bad play he had was a touchdown. It was just an awesome, awesome game from those two. I believe Justin Herbert's first 400-yard game. Keenan Allen, 18 catches, 215 receiving yards, and one pass for 49 yards and a touchdown. Herbert, 40 for 47, 405 yards and 3 touchdowns. It was basically perfect between those two.
Yeah, I think that the Cowboys game on Thanksgiving is probably still my favorite Keenan game. But this is a very close second. Getting the touchdown pass, getting the 2 small moments over and over and over again against Byron Murphy. I thought the offensive PI was soft. I didn't see much there on the replay.
And then Murphy was talking and talking and talking after the 180th yard he gave up.
Right.
I mean, come on, man.
Right. Like he was complaining on every single instance that the Chargers offensive players were like pushing off, and like, he did a clamp down thing against Joshua Palmer. Like, dude, Keenan Allen's like taking your lunch money left and right. I don't know if I'd be talking that much as you are. So it was just a great Keenan Allen game, like truly an all-time performance. I think breaks the record for receptions. I don't know if did he break the receiving record for yards too, or just receptions?
Not a single yards. That was Wes Chandler with 260, but 215 is pretty darn close, man.
Yeah, that is pretty close. Just felt like Keenan was the answer at every single moment. I saw somebody in the chat say the offense still revolves around Keenan, and that is very, very accurate. I real quickly, wanted to go look at like where he's at right now in terms of his stat line. He headed into today with 14 catches, 187 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then today he goes off for 18, 215. So listen, like Keenan Allen had the best training camp that we've ever seen from him. He was consistently dominant in practice, and that has translated into the season. There was a lot of offseason narratives about Keenan Allen being washed and Keenan Allen being cooked, and they should cut him, they should do this. And Keenan Allen has had 3 awesome games to start the season. They do not win this game without him playing the way that he did today, especially against, this kind of aggressive defense. It felt like the Vikings were blitzing every single drop back. And when you do that, you have to have a receiver like Keenan to just consistently, make them pay. And he did. So big tip of the cap to Keenan Allen today.
Yeah. Impressive, turn the clock back, wind the clock back kind of performance from him. And again, you could kind of see this coming last season to start the year, but he was out and a half. And then to close last year, you started to see this, but there's that gap in the middle where there's injuries and you don't believe, and he's older and there's, money involved. So maybe they cut him, etc. But you watch him in camp and it was clear. And I think both of you and I agreed that Keenan Allen had the best camp of anybody at camp. And, whatever the narratives were about slot corner, or Quentin Johnson or edge or whatever, Keenan Allen's been so consistent. And it's just, we talked about how this game could be very much so like the Cardinals game last year, where it's just got to get the ball. And they did. And it wasn't pretty. We didn't love watching it all the time, but they did get it done. Again, 40 for 47, 405 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then another passing one from Keenan. But in that Cardinals game, it required so much of Keenan Allen, especially in the final moments of that game, their final close out to close out that game and get the touchdown against the Cardinals. It required a huge one from Keenan Allen. This game, it was just every single play. I mean, again, was it 20 targets for Keenan Allen, 18 catches on those 20 targets? They had no answer. And I don't know if, he even had 11.9 yards per catch with all those targets. Like, that's impressive. Yeah. God, what a day, man. Like, Keenan Allen is my favorite player on the team. I just respect everything about him and what he's done since he entered the league. An outstanding Charger. And I'm happy that he and Herbert were able to get these records, pass their own selves in their records. Because I think this is also Justin Herbert's 100th touchdown. That was to Josh Palmer. I think there was some sort of completions record.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, this dude has been balling out of his mind, and he's going to throw a pick and then right to Josh Palmer for the touchdown. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. No, it was And that was it. Like that was the game. There's a whole different game in here that didn't happen, right? But so many different things between the margins. Yeah, impressive day from those two. I have nothing else to say about Keenan and Herbert. They were just awesome.
Yeah, just a surgical day from Justin Herbert. S just pointed out the statistics. 40 of 47, 85% completion percentage. Some of that is definitely, the swing passes and things like that.
Sure.
But Benjamin Solak of the Ringer pointed out that that's the best single game completion percentage for any quarterback in NFL history with at least 45 attempts. So
That's pretty good.
That is pretty good.
Yeah.
I just thought I love the way that he was handling the blitz packages, the pressure. Again, this was not a super clean day from the protection unit. I thought there were several instances of running back issues, tight end issues. There was one moment, in the fourth quarter where Joshua Kelly ends up trying to block Danielle Hunter, and it results in that strip sack. They struggle with it operationally, and this is something that the Chargers are going to need to correct. But Herbert himself, just handled the pressure at such a high level. The rollout left on 3rd and 17, and just the dot to Keenan
illegal
over the middle, like that was one of the craziest throws I've ever seen, and it was probably his 3rd best throw of the day. Like Herbert was on one today, and this is the guy that I think, like, there was a lot of, Herbert's not this, Herbert's not that narratives after the first 2 weeks. This game is exactly the kind of performance that we expect to see from Justin Herbert in these moments. And, again, I would have loved to see him get, that opportunity to have that first down on the 4th down, but Herbert was excellent all day today. Loses Mike Williams, which we can get into here in a second, but the offense just was so efficient today from a passing perspective, and Justin Herbert was just lethal left and right all day today, throwing lasers. So all-time performance from Keenan Allen, but Justin Herbert was just as good today, in my opinion.
Yeah, this was. I disagreed, I think, with Arjun. I think he said that this is the best performance I've seen from Justin Herbert. I initially disagreed with that, or maybe it was Alex. I can't remember. But the more I think about it, and I don't know if it is or not, but I can't remember a game where Herbert had to be this on the entire game and execute almost perfectly the entire time. Like, there are games where he's been good, but maybe it's not as much on him to be perfect, or games where he's had to be on all the time, like against the Cardinals. But it was like, they scored 20 points in that game or whatever it was. This game, like every single drop back that wasn't a screen, there was pressure. And it wasn't always even just the offensive line or the protection. They brought an extra guy. They brought that guy. Yeah. They did everything they possibly could to move Herbert, get to Herbert. And he consistently was able to move up in the pocket, adjust, readjust, like you said, roll out to the left, throw it 45 degrees the other direction in between 2 defenders and 40 yards that way. Like, what on earth is that? There are moments that Justin Herbert can do things like that. You and I both expected the offense to be better this game. We both expected the passing offense to be better this game. I didn't see this coming. This is honestly one of the most impressive Herbert performances, because the protection wasn't great. The Vikings were doing everything they possibly could to get him. The defense was doing him no favors most of the game. He had to score every drive, and they did, and the Chargers didn't do that. Fumbles, etc. But he had to be on, because one mistake, even that interception that he almost threw, but like no first down there or whatever, that gives the Vikings more time to score at the end or something. Like, he had to be on, and he was the entire game. 40 for 47, 405 yards. I don't remember what Rivers had on that day where he has set like the franchise record
the Cardinals
completions. But it almost felt like that, where it's just every single play was just completion. And credit to some of these players like Mike Williams for that catch, for making this possible for Herbert too.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say this is his best game. Like, I mean, you and I were in Las Vegas for that Week 18 game.
Yeah.
The Browns game from 2021, the Raiders game in Week 1 last year, to me, is a super underrated game of his that I think is up there. But I think this was his most consistent game. Like, he was dialed in from the jump, making great decisions and just throwing the ball in crazy moments. the touchdown to Donald Parham at the 1 yard line, like it just
Unreal.
rocketed that pass in there. And you see Donald Parham on the sideline, like, oh, like I like, you know, he was motioning like that was super hot coming in. So it was, I think, most consistent game that we've seen from Justin Herbert, just making great decisions. And this is an instance of how far he has come as a player when going through these kind of situations. Because we remember, you know, his rookie season against the Dolphins, who were coached by Brian Flores. And, you know, the Keenan Allen quote that they had like no idea what the Dolphins were doing. Like they just had no answer for it. And, you know, it's been a few years, right? But like Herbert was so good against the blitz today. I'm very curious to see what the numbers are from PFF tomorrow about that. But just surgical, was great decisions all day long, super consistent. And you pointed out his only turnover worthy play of the day was a touchdown to Joshua Palmer. So just that kind of day that Justin Herbert deserved to have, because he's been playing at a really high level. And then today it just kind of all came together for him in the offense.
Yeah. Amazing. I don't know. It felt like more than 28 points. I felt like this offense was able to put up more than that. It was only 28, but impressive from him. Again, we were waiting for the, you know, well, here's why you paid him game, which we knew was on the way. But, you know, the offense is still trying to figure things out, and they are still trying to figure things out. But I'd say 405 yards passing is a pretty good one, especially considering, and you talk about how far he's come since his rookie season. How about since the last time he played the Vikings, where everything was kind of in disarray and things weren't working out so hot? You know, the interception to Eric Kendricks flustered that game too. And granted, there were some play calling issues as well, and some drops, but this is a clear step forward from the last time we saw him play the Vikings, though things are very different now.
Yeah. So really great day from Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen. I think it's a great point to point out that this offense is still learning, trying to figure things out. You know, again, it's an underrated thing, but it takes time to like properly build up protection plans in these kind of games. You know, it took a minute for the Chargers in 2021, and this was with Frank Smith, to like really figure out like the protection plans in certain moments. So you know, I have confidence that these issues that the Chargers have had over the first few weeks from a protection standpoint will continue to get ironed out. And overall, I think, again, 28 points. The Chargers are averaging, what's it at now? 29 overall. Like this offense is performing at a really, really high level. So, you know, Justin Herbert deserves a ton of respect today, in my opinion, for what he did.
I'm doing the math.
Okay, so it's 34 week one.
So 28.6 or 28.7. I don't know where they cut it off, but
okay.
Yeah, still pretty darn good. It's not 70 a game, I'll tell you that much.
Jesus Christ, man.
The Broncos got to start over, dude.
I thought, yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. I saw a tweet from one of the national reporters that was like, Mike McDaniel kneeled it and he could have taken a field goal, like so classy. I'm like, the man was airing out with Mike White in the fourth quarter. Like, what? Come on.
That was like prime Brian Dable back in the day with the Bills, where it's just like, yeah, we don't care. We do not care.
Yes.
50 is not enough.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about the fourth down decision. We talked about Keenan and Mike. This is where I want to go next. Thule, man, like, insane. Just an insane day. And we can talk about some of the other defensive players that stepped up, but is he the best player on the defense right now? Like, is that crazy? Like, it's been insane to watch him pick things up like this. Run stops left and right, setting the edge, put Brian O'Neill on his ass a couple of times with the bull rush, like was in Kirk Cousins' face all day long. Like Tuipulotu, I think I was higher on him than most. I did not see these couple games coming. Like, this man is on an absolute tear right now. Like, he is just wrecking shop at certain moments. Like, the Chargers have something legit here with Tuipulotu. The only thing missing, we got to get these broadcasters a pronunciation sheet. And Mark Sanchez went to USC. He's a USC guy, and he's getting Tule's name wrong left and right. Just chopping the first half of his last name on it out and just calling him Pelotu. Like, come on. That's the only thing missing right now from Tule's performances is the respect of getting his name correct. But have yourself a day again, Mr. Tuipulotu.
Yeah, I thought of this. Where I just lost it. Oh, from Paul Sanchez. I thought the same thing. Probably my next jersey. Yeah, honestly, I thought watching the game, dude, I'm going to get this guy's jersey. And I don't remember the last time I thought about that for a second round pick in his third game and his sort of second start. According to Arjun, Thule had 9 pressures on the day. I don't know how much, which I don't, and that doesn't count for like, we're not talking about run stops or even like win rate. 9 pressures. This, like I made a joke about this, but the dude probably doesn't even have his horizontal license yet because he just turned 21. Like they haven't even mailed it
He probably
to him yet.
doesn't.
No, he probably has the vertical license because he's just so young. What he's doing, I'm trying to remember the last time I remember. It really feels like Derwin James' debut, the last time a defender on this team had this kind of start to his career. And you can even say Joey Bosa because he won Defensive Rookie of the Year. But remember, he didn't play the first 3 or 4 games. And then he still won Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
But still, we're talking like Thule is the best player on the defense. And I wouldn't. Do I think he is overall? No. Has he been that the last 2 weeks in particular? Yeah. Like 9 pressures. He's not even starting. He's kind of starting, but he's not like he's the full-time number
He's
1
rotating,
or number 2. I mean, 9 pressures from this guy. 5 from Khalil Mack, by the way. 3 from Bash, Fox, Bosa. And I guess Scott Matlack had 3 pressures. Nick Neiman on the pressure. Nick Williams on the pressure with a pressure. Chris Rumpf had 0 on 15 pass rushes. We've been, now granted, very different points in the draft they were taken, right? But we've been like, this is the year that Chris Rumpf is going to break out, and he still might. He's coming back from injury, but then Thule's like, nah, I don't need a year. I don't need 4 years. I just need like 15 minutes, and then I'm good to go. I mean, the dude has just been rock solid since he walked into the building, and everyone's talked about him this way. So impressed with him. You see Joey Bosa saying, "I love Thule Tuipulotu. Like, I love this kid. He's amazing." But it backed up is incredible. Oh, wow. Okay, so pressures allowed. Do you want to get into the pressures allowed that Arjun or something?
I still want to say some things about Thule.
Okay, yeah, have at it.
Like the way that him and Joey play off of each other is kind of crazy to me. Like the way that they're able to really understand each other's games, and it's very reminiscent of Joey and Melvin Ingram. And I made that comparison, after watching the tape, that Thule would reminded me so much of what the Chargers were doing with Melvin Ingram back in the day. The way that they just kind of work off each other is really, really fun to watch. You can tell, like you mentioned, that Joey really loves playing next to Thule, and it gives them so many different options. Of course, the Chargers didn't get a ton of pressure at the end, but overall, like, this is a really solid day, and I think my concern about like the edge rushers is that you have Darisaw, you have Brian O'Neill, 2 really, really good offensive tackles, and Thule got both of them on some pressures. There was Thule, it was like a long arm spin, and then O'Neill had a nice kind of like recovery, and then Thule was able to spin into a bull rush and get home, and it was just so impressive. Just like a true veteran edge rusher out there, the things that he's doing. So the defense is still a mixed bag, but they have started to figure some things out up front that I think should at least make this defense better than what we saw in week 1. So it's encouraging to see the way that the front is playing right now. And honestly, it starts with the way that Thule is playing.
Yeah, go figure, right? I wasn't sure how much he'd even be playing at this point. Of course, you'd hope that Joey Bosa would be healthy, but minor blessing in disguise here, right? Like, I don't think we'd know what he could do in like fuller status if Joey weren't hurt. So we have 9 from Thule, 5 from Max, of 14, and then another 12, so 26, so 28 pressures today from the Chargers defense, leading the way. Of course, Thule Tuipulotu. Look, I've gotten his name wrong before, of course. I'm also not a broadcaster who spends the entire week remembering how to pronounce these names.
Theoretically.
In theory, right? Impressive, as impressive as I can remember. I'd have to look at what Joey had his first 3 games. I know he had 2 sacks on Derek Carr in his debut, but it was kind of some cleanup. What Thule's doing, he had 9 pressures this game, and I could tell you that he was better against the run, maybe. And I don't think I'd be too far off by saying that. Again, we just thought going into this season that he would be like you know what? They go with edge 3, and they have Thule and Chris Rumpf out there. At least Thule's really good against the run. He's really powerful. He's really good against the run. So at least he can do that and be that. 9 pressures today against 2 very good tackles. I'm at a loss for words with him, honestly.
You mentioned Joey's start to the season. 7 total pressures, 2 sacks against the Raiders in his debut. 7 pressures against the Broncos in his second game with 3 quarterback hits. 6 pressures against the Falcons and 2 sacks in his third game. 6 pressures and 4 quarterback hits in his fourth game. Yeah, Joey both said it was a bit different to start the year.
Yeah,
but still, man. I mean,
let's
you're
look at
talking
the 4
about
starts. I mean,
yeah, I mean, you're talking about Thule having, what was it, 5 and 1 last week, I think it was.
Yeah, PFF gave him credit for 2, so I think he was 6 and 2.
Yeah. Okay, so Thule officially had 3 pressures and 2 sacks last week, which felt low to me, and then initial numbers have him at 9 right now today. So listen, man, like Thule's a player, and like he's elevating the floor of this Chargers defense, and you know him and Joey just are really crushing things together right now.
Yeah, the defensive line, you know, NFL's Blitz talking about Sebastian Joseph Day quietly having a solid game. I'm glad he was on the field after snapping his neck.
Yeah.
Walking in the locker room, didn't want to see that. This is a game we were definitely waiting for, and we've given a lot of credit to Austin Johnson before the season, but what he provides, and I think he's still working back from being injured and out for so long. But it's really, again, the front, and honestly, even Kenneth Murray to a certain extent, and even a Nick Niemann special at the end there, like the front 7 has really started to start figuring it out. And I will leave it at that. I will say that the front 7 has really started to figure it out. Yes.
Yeah, it's been fun. Kenneth Murray, that's another one too, man. He had some really, really good moments today. Couple just like really crucial run stops. The one at the goal line really saved them at that moment. You know, that was really the one that I think was his best play of the day. Kind of crazy to see him start like way back, and then he just shot that gap as a great play. A couple other really good big hits, but the interception was about Nick Niemann. I know Kenneth Murray gets it, but Nick Niemann's the one who made that play on the ball, and then JT Woods tip drill. And credit to Kenneth for coming down with that interception. But a good day from Kenneth, a good day from Alohi Gilman for the most part as well. Should have had 2 forced fumbles. Still maintain that goal line stop should have been a goal line stop. Just a ridiculous sequence from the officiating crew, in my opinion. So some key performances from those 2 players. You know, this defense is going to be in a tough spot without Derwin potentially for the next few weeks. The cornerback issues continue to plague them. But for the most part, again, like if the front is playing well, like that's the best way to help out a suspect secondary, is that you can get pressure and get home on Kirk Cousins and things like that. And they were able to do that today.
Yeah, impressive from Alohi Gilman today. I don't know what it looked like in coverage overall, but again, if the defense isn't going to be great and shut down, at least force some turnovers. And almost had 3. I wish we had got one more look at the non-interception. First forced fumble, fantastic, of course. Ripped that ball away. Very much so Khalil Mack-esque there. Again, should have had a second one. I've never seen forward progress stopped instantly before. If that were how games were called, then no one would ever have yards after a contact. And watching the rest of the game, I couldn't tell anymore what it meant to stop forward progress versus not. Could they have stopped it at Gerald Everett when he picked up more yards for the first down, or when, I forget which receiver. Oh, the receiver that caught it, Michael Davis tackled him inbounds. Maybe that was Hawkinson. Like, I don't know anymore. That was a BS call. Don't understand it. The whole internet agreed. No idea what happened there. But then, Alohi Gilman, solid game. Good hit on Hawkinson on that final drive that jarred the ball loose. Really, really solid there. The Chargers weren't tackling really well today, but they were hitting harder, I feel like, than I remember them before.
Yeah, it felt more physical overall. You know, that play, like, if you watch the broadcast of it back, like there's no whistle until after the ball comes out. Like the ref literally threw the beanbag to indicate that it was a fumble. Like, just so confusing that they came to that conclusion, because that's not what happened on the field. We'll get to a couple super chats. We'll touch on some other things. Frankie Sanchez, Kenneth Murray legacy pick. Season is alive. Let's ride, boys. Appreciate that. The season is alive. Again, 0-3 is basically a death sentence. Will be very interesting to see what the Vikings do from their perspective after today. But the Chargers are 1-2. You have a game against the Raiders. If you're 2-2 at the bye, you feel better about your chances heading into that tough stretch after the bye. So very much alive after today. Brian says, why not play QJ? Mike Williams was out and he still couldn't get on the field. What'd you make of him today? Again, it had the 2 screen touches, I guess you want to call them, 2 receptions, 10 yards. But what do you make of the way Quentin Johnston was used today?
I don't know if it was a whole lot different than before. I feel like there are many plays where like, ooh, look at the really good play to Keenan Allen, and there's Quentin Johnston running really far down the field. So in some instances, that kind of feels familiar. It was encouraging to at least see him get 2 screens, one particular that went for a first down. Great. And I got very excited. I saw he got them, like, yeah, he's going to go for 50 yards, and he got 7.
Same.
And a first
Brooke was
down.
like, why are you so happy with that? It was like 5 yards.
Right. So we'll see. Why him not, why not him when Mike Williams is out? I don't know. I'd have to look at what they did do when Mike Williams was out. What did Quentin Johnston do? I think Arjun says that Johnston had 13 snaps. So there's 3 more. I call that a 33% improvement is what I'm seeing from last week. So he's getting there. But again, I don't know. We'll see. Darius Davis did get on the field first, so I was worried. But they got Johnston the football, and they got Isaiah Spiller the football more than they did last week, which was
I don't remember seeing Elijah Dotson very much at all.
I don't have Elijah Dotson on the field at all to my memory. And then Isaiah Spiller with the 2 carries, Dotson with none. But yeah, Spiller, I don't know if we want to get into this at this point because we're still going through super chats, but up and down day.
Yeah, up and down day. I will say regarding Quentin Johnston, he's going to play a whole lot more now. I don't know what the situation is with Mike Williams. I'm hoping for the best, obviously, for him. I felt like watching that play live that it was going to be like a head injury, because I felt like Harrison Phillips led with his head and hit Keenan, or hit Mike like right in the crown of his helmet. And then to see that it was the knee and seeing that he was not able to really put much weight on it, it's a brutal situation. People are going to talk about how like, oh, like this is typical Mike Williams, like he can't stay healthy. This is like a freak injury. And I'm hopeful that this isn't like worst case scenario for Mike, because he's been playing so well. But Quentin's going to play now. Like he's going to be the X receiver in this offense as long as Mike Williams is out, because that's not Joshua Palmer's best role. It's not Keenan's role. Like Quentin is going to play now. Like he's going to get meaningful snaps. He's going to get a lot more targets. And this is the situation that we talked about. Like there was a lot of, hype around like Quentin Johnston being like potentially rookie of the year and things like that in the summer before training camp started. And it was always like, well, he's behind all these guys. Well, now he's one of the guys. Like he is going to be on the field more often. He's going to be getting a different kind of role, and we'll see if he's up for the task. I think he will be. I think he's going to have some good moments. I think the relationship and the rapport between Justin and Quentin is going to continue to improve. And I think that he's going to have some really good moments from here on out. So it's unfortunate that this is the circumstances that have to happen for Quentin to get on the field, but they don't have a choice now. Like he's going to be on the field. Like there is no other option for Mike Williams' replacement. It is Quentin Johnston.
I won't say these two had the exact same training camp, but there was some, if Chris Rumford were healthy, I don't know that we would have seen Thule play as much in week 1. And then if Joey were healthy, how much would we see Thule play at all? And kind of forcing their hand that way has allowed them to see what they really do have in someone like Thule, who, again, I didn't see this coming at all. And now you have the opportunity to, your hand is forced. Quentin Johnston is playing. He's now, I'm assuming Darius Davis isn't wide receiver 3, but I'm assuming Quentin Johnston at this point would be wide receiver 3. And I think that this injury in particular does allow Johnston on the field more than someone like Keenan, because I think that you just kind of slide a little bit of Darius Davis, a little bit of Josh Palmer there. This is what they've been using him as. we're a bit frustrated with his usage because of the yak and what we thought he could do there. They've been developing him more as that outside guy, like that X guy, like you mentioned. So yeah, there's no more excuses at this point. I don't envision the Raiders defense being that good next week either. So this would be a very good, home at SoFi, show us what you got kind of moment. And what can you do? You need to be the X factor that Mike Williams is, whether Mike Williams is great or inconsistent or whatever you want to label him. He does have that X factor that Johnston has, just in a slightly different way. But they've been using him as an X. So what can he do now in this role? And unfortunately, we'll see what the Mike Williams injury is. I can't imagine he's back anytime soon, if at all. Unfortunately, that means we're going to miss the at Arrowhead Mike Williams game, and we're gonna need someone like Quentin Johnston to step up and be that for them.
Yeah, like best case scenario, you're talking about like some kind of knee sprain, and maybe after the bye week, Mike is able to kind of, play through some things, but it didn't look good. And Mike Williams has healed from things fast in the past. That is a thing too. Yeah. So it just makes me a little nervous and frustrated that this is the way that Quentin Johnston has to get the ball. But hopefully Mike Williams is okay, and we'll see how that goes. Appreciate the super chats as always from Tyler's parents. We got Mama Shun in here saying that she's also about to win $100 on Prize Picks.
She would.
She would. That seems like her luck as well. So appreciate her using the connection there. Hopefully you guys also won some money on Prize Picks this week. And then Tyler's dad also gave a super chat. Your mom's going to the Raiders game with you guys, so that should be fun. We'll have 2 Chargers fans in the stands.
Woohoo!
Or 2.5, I guess.
Yeah, whatever you want to count my dad as. But yes, 2.5.
And then a super sticker from Bex. Appreciate that.
It's my sister.
Oh, all right. There we go. Shun family showing out today.
Yeah.
All right, Tyler. Where do you want to head next here?
I think we got to talk about the secondary, which is the next. I mean, again, you talked about how JC was like the 5th story that we could talk about today. I think we're on the 5th story. So JC Jackson being a healthy scratch. First, we saw inactive from, I think, Daniel Popper. And it's like, okay, we've sort of seen this, not as a surprise, but JC, that has a surgery, plays, doesn't play. Got to get him inactive. Get ready for, the buyer or whatever. Maybe it's not responding. But then the reports came out that it's a healthy inactive. And I really don't know what to make of it. At the time, real time at the moment when we found out, it's like, why this game and why after last game? I don't recall him being bad against the Titans and statistically only allowed 19 yards. So what happened? And I understand if you say that, Zont should be a starter and Davis should be a starter. I kind of get that. That's fine. I just don't know if then Jaw was the guy that I thought they would roll with and then bench JC entirely. A surprise there. I don't know that the secondary played any better without him out there. And I don't really think Jaw in particular had a great game. And we're thankful that Kirk Cousins missed whoever it was on like the out and up or whatever it was towards the end of the game.
Osborne.
Yeah, Osborne. So I don't know, man. We'll see. The thing about this is that I can't even make really any big sweeping judgments on this because the following week is going to be, well, hey, look, JC's active and Michael Davis is inactive. Like, would that even surprise any of us? No, because it's been so inconsistent. So I can't even really be making some sweeping guess on what's going on here. But unfortunate. And I don't know why he was benched in particular in this game. That just doesn't quite make sense to me. And because nobody's been good. I think Zont was better today. I think he was the best corner on the field today. But up until that point, I don't know that anyone was so good that, let's bench JC and roll with these 3.
Yeah. So according to Jeff Miller, Staley said after the game that the decision on JC Jackson was made because he felt this group of defensive backs gave the Chargers their best chance to win today. And then I guess there was a follow-up question about if JC had the chance to work his way back into the rotation. And Staley said that is to be determined, which is his go-to statement of this season. That's to be determined is like the thing this year. It is puzzling. Like, I thought that he was fine against the Titans. I don't think he was good. I don't think he was bad. They didn't really test him very much. You know, the big plays
Right.
were against Michael Davis and Asante. Um, but it's not like Michael Davis has been playing really well. I mean, Michael Davis had a pretty rough day against the Dolphins. He had a pretty rough day against the Titans, and he had 3 or 4 penalties today. Some good moments
At
for sure.
least.
Like the tackle on Hawkinson was a good play. He had a couple, plays on the football, but it's not like Michael Davis is playing great right now. And maybe that's something that he can find his form again. But it's uh it's it's bad in the secondary right now. Jasir Taylor got beat a couple times. He did have some good moments in the run game, but JC Jackson, I don't know. There's a lot of narratives being thrown out there today. A lot of people trying to declare his season over and things like that. I think you just gotta work through this and hope that he's able to get back to his former self. At this point, I do kind of wish that they had just started him out on the pup list, that he had just been able
Yeah.
to have a really long leash to work his way back, and they had waited until like after the bye week to see what they had with him, because I don't love the way that this was set up. His first game back from injury, he's isolated against Tyreek Hill for 80% of the game. Like, how is that effectively bringing him back? And then 2 weeks later, he's a healthy scratch. So I understand that JC has not performed well, but I don't feel like the Chargers have really set him up for success either. And now we're in this situation where you have 4 cornerbacks on the roster and they're all kind of struggling at certain things. You don't really have one guy who's like your hallmark corner that you had last year with Michael Davis. It's a frustrating situation. And if this is what it needs to get these guys, gelling together and being a cohesive unit, then that sucks that you have to, bench your $85 million cornerback so that your other cornerbacks can play better. It's a lose-lose situation all around. And I hate that this is where we're at.
It's puzzling. And then we've talked about this for 3 weeks now, and it feels like even so heading into this game and after this game, the DBs just are not, the corners, I should say, have not been put in a position where I feel like they can be successful. And I don't even think the Chargers knew what they were doing with JC in the situation. Like, if, again, like you mentioned, Tyreek Hill, like they had him cover Tyreek Hill by himself for an entire game. Like, you're good enough to assume that this player coming off an injury, we have not seen him on the field. He has not really even finished practice, but that's the guy you're going to go send out there to cover Tyreek Hill on so many different plays. Okay. And then 2 weeks later, he's inactive. He's not good enough to even be on the field against Jefferson, Addison, Osborne, Hawkinson, these guys. But then, like, what was the plan? Because you didn't sign a corner. You didn't draft a corner. Like, Michael Davis does not have an extension. It's not like you've been settled in with Zont and Michael Davis at this point. And so you had no other plan. But so then you put out JC in week 1 and play so many snaps. And then 2 weeks later, he's inactive. This guy's the starter. That guy, like, it's just a whole mess in the secondary. I don't understand why these rotations are the way that they are. Again, I hope moving forward, if this is it, then this is it. And if somebody gets hurt, maybe JC's active or something. But I don't know. I can't for the life of me figure out what is going on in the secondary. And again, I expect that something different will happen next week where, I don't know, Zont is benched for some reason because they really want JC for something. I don't know, but nothing makes any sense to me. And it's not working right now.
Yeah, and again, like, if the other guys were all playing super, super well and like JC just like does not look like himself, like I get it at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like Davis and Asante are playing super great. Jasir Taylor's really struggled in pass coverage. It's just I don't know how this helps JC get back on track. And they need him to get back on track. Like, they need this guy to be out there. He's really their only long-term asset that they have at the cornerback position. So this puts the Chargers in a tough spot. Again, 4 cornerbacks that were active today. If one of those guys gets injured, it just puts the Chargers in such a tough spot from a depth perspective. I understand, again, that JC wasn't playing great. before the ruptured patella tendon, but this has been just kind of a disaster for him from a health perspective. You have the random ankle injury surgery, and then he comes back too early, and then he, relapses from that, and then he gets the torn patella tendon, and maybe he came back too early from this too. Like it's just a terrible situation. I feel for him because it just has to be demoralizing to have these kind of things happening when you're coming back from an injury. You play against Tyreek Hill, they ask you to match up with him one-on-one for most of the game, and now you're inactive 2 weeks later. It's just it's frustrating to watch as somebody who went through that same kind of injury, and I know how difficult that injury is to come back from. I feel like he's being set up to fail, and not to say that he deserves these opportunities by any means from his play, but it's just, I feel bad for the guy, and I know that the Chargers secondary has not been great, and I know JC has not been great, but I just feel bad for the guy.
Yeah, it's a combination of everything. I don't remember, like, even with some players who are busts after being drafted or as free agents, there's always like kind of the one thing, but there never seems to be 4 different things that are going on. Injuries, coaching, rotations, another injury. Like, dude had a extra growth bone in his foot. Like, what on earth? But then the way they're using him, I don't know. The one thing I do want to push back on, I don't mean to single out Jacob in particular, but it's the most recent one I've seen. It's not that JC Jackson does not care about the team. I can't imagine, given all that he did this offseason to get back to begin with, is about him not caring about the team, or that he just wants to take the money and sit. That's very much so like a Jared Gaither situation back in the day, where that was one of the most colossal free agent busts I can remember, or not free agent, extension busts I can remember. JC wanted to be out there. He said as much. He promised he would be out there. He was out there, and then they made him cover Tyreek Hill for a game, and then they benched him 2 weeks later. I don't know what's going on, and I don't know if we'll ever know. Again, I don't know if we'll ever know. But hopefully these guys, this trio, this is your trio. Hopefully Michael Davis gets what he wants, whereas I'm going to find a rhythm and I'll get to be out there and we'll get better.
Yeah. Anyone who thinks that JC doesn't care is it's a ridiculous narrative. It's a ridiculous thing to say of somebody who goes through this kind of injury that has such a low recovery rate for professional athletes. For him to be out there in week 1, it takes a ton of time, rehab, and guts and passion to come out for these kind of moments. And yes, again, I get it. He has not played super well, but you don't go through that kind of recovery in 9 months or whatever it was if you don't care about the team, if you don't care about your ability to get back out on the field. Rehab from that injury is so extensive and so brutal that questioning his heart, his desire, to me is ridiculous. If you think that JC Jackson does not care, you haven't been in his kind of shoes. You haven't been in that kind of moment where he is going through this rehab process. Again, this specific injury has the lowest rate of recovery for NFL players of any other knee injury. So to question his kind of work ethic is ridiculous to me. Kevin just pointed out, he's from Florida. He spent the entire offseason in Los Angeles so he could rehab from this injury. So if you want to separate like what he's played on the field, I get it. To question his pride, to question his desire to play is a ridiculous statement to me. And anybody who is saying this kind of and pushing this kind of narrative does not deserve to be in this chat right now. Like, that makes me so upset that people would come in here and talk about JC Jackson not caring about the team and not caring and not having passion when this kind of injury is so difficult to come back from. JC absolutely cares. He absolutely has passion for this team. He absolutely wants to be out there. And I'm sorry for getting mad about this, but that really set me off. Like, JC Jackson is 100% into this team, and he is 100% trying to get back on this field, trying to get back to his former self. It's a brutal injury to come back from. So I this is not how I wanted to end this show today, but that really set me off.
I Can't say much more than that, Steven. That was a very strong stream of consciousness there, and I completely understand your frustrations. I share your frustrations. I think a lot of people in the chat, and I think most fans do share your frustrations. There's a lot to be said about the play or the rotations or the disappointment or the contract or whatever, but it is not about JC Jackson's character from anything that I can tell, at least. If there's more that I don't know, fine. But from my outside perspective looking in, there's nothing that suggests that it's not about that it is about him not caring. I'm happy to find other positive things to talk about, though, to close out the show. I think we have a couple of we have one more super chat here. We can, well, that's kind of negative, but it's at least not JC Jackson. So
yeah, I get it. I understand the frustration. I'm upset about the situation too, but I'm not about questioning players' characters right now.
That was pretty much the equivalent of an LDS punch in the face. That's the funniest thing. That's really funny.
Yeah. Trust me, I wanted to say some cuss words. I held back, but
yeah, it was impressive. It was impressive. And again, we single out the single person. There's a lot of takes on social media related to that.
Yeah, Facebook was brutal this morning to go look at that after the inactives came out. So
I can only imagine.
All right. Yeah, I'm really excited to watch the film of this game.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I think we should point out is the pass protection issues that you wanted to get into earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Arjun sent the numbers, and it does seem like a lot of running back and tight end issues from today. According to the early numbers that Arjun sent us, Corey Linsley allowed 2 pressures, Slater 1 pressure. So shame on him for allowing 1 pressure in 2 consecutive weeks. Pipkins, Johnson, Sawyer, 0 pressures, according to these early numbers. Joshua Kelly with 3 allowed pressures, and Isaiah Spiller with 2. So, again, this kind of situation is a game where you definitely felt Austin Eckler and his absence today.
Yeah, that's not great. And I don't know if you could just roll in Elijah Dotson and feel better about that situation either in terms of pass protection. So that's something they have to get worked out because other teams are going to see that. And teams like the Dallas Cowboys are a lot better on defense and can do a lot more. So we'll see. They have a bye to figure it out. We'll see how long Eckler's even out for. Hopefully it's not a significantly long absence, but it does feel post-bye return to me. If it is longer than that, I would consider bringing in a free agent. I don't know who's still available, but you need someone who can be a bit more reliable in pass protection. You can't get to the point where it's multiple sacks. I mean, Herbert, if he were, I don't know, Phillip Rivers, and I guess Rivers can move in the pocket, but if he were someone a bit more immobile, that's 3-4 more sacks that probably should have been picked up. And you can't just run this offense, pray Keenan gets open every time, which he did today. But that's not consistent. You can't rely on that. So hopefully they get that worked out.
Yeah. As I think it was Todd. Todd pointed out the Chargers forced 8 incompletions today. Asante Samuel with 3 and Jasir Taylor with 2. So that's a positive from them. They did allow 36 receptions, but it was a tough spot for them to be in today. I would have liked to see maybe a little bit more safety help. So maybe this is a step in the right direction for Asante, getting him right, because the team certainly needs that.
I'm going to request Arjun as we speak.
All right, Tyler, anything else you want to hit on before we head out of here?
A couple of people have mentioned the run game. I think I'll have to just rewatch the game and figure out what happened. Credit to the Vikings. Part of that is defense, and the Vikings played really well. There was nowhere to go. So that'll hopefully be something that gets sorted out. The Chargers are certainly going to fall back towards the middle more after not being so great at the run today. But the pass game is up. And so I don't really have much else to add at this point other than they won. I will pick them to win next week. And then God bless the Chargers for the 2 weeks after that.
Yeah, they ran into 8-man boxes, I feel like, a lot, which I would have loved to see some more creative runs to try and get them going. The Mark Sanchez was talking about all these screens and swing passes are kind of an extension of the run game, but this is kind of the game plan that you needed against the Vikings defense. So, we'll see what happens there. Running back protection wise, I think if Eckler is if Eckler is going to continue being out, I think you probably do need to address that spot a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, so Tyler and I will have more on the Chargers channel on Wednesday. Really excited to go back and watch this film and see some things that we didn't see. That's always such an enlightening experience for me. I love watching the tape back of these kind of games. So should be a lot of fun. Chargers are 1-2, still alive in the AFC. Hopefully 2-2 after next week, and getting back on the right track for the Chargers this year. So that's going to do it for us today, guys. Appreciate all of the comments, super chats. It's been fun today. Good turnout. And we'll see you next time. As always, bolt up.